How's it going, everyone? This is No Fate and welcome to a Call of Duty Warzone video where I'm going to be teaching you guys how to become better players to win more gunfights and get those wins. I'm super excited to make this video because I can't stress enough how important this information is. We all want to be winning more gunfights, right? And the more gunfights we win, the closer we get to that victory at the end of the match. And who doesn't want to be winning more gunfights and winning more games? That's literally the whole point of why we're playing. Now, if you're taking on just some of these points or all of them, this might be not new information for experienced players, but the refresher is definitely important. I still need a refresher from time to time. But the point is, regardless of your skill level, these points will 100% improve your gameplay. I break down this video into 5 different sections, and I will go into each section with tons of detail. So 1 is preparation, 2 is warm-up, 3 is positioning, 4 is movement, and 5 is mentality. So without any further ado, let's get into point 1, preparation. Preparation is probably one of the most overlooked aspects of all of gaming. Most people just jump into a match. I'm privy to it too. And yeah, we're not warmed up, we haven't prepared well, we don't know our classes, and therefore we're putting ourselves at a disadvantage. My first main tip in this section is quite an easy one, which is just changing your minimap to square. When you change your minimap to square, you essentially just see more of the minimap. So it makes it better for seeing, weapon pings on the map, where vehicles are, boxes, anything. Essentially, it makes your map bigger so you can see more. So why not do it? And some additional words of advice: don't change your settings in a match because stuff like this happens. My next tip is all about making a great loadout and knowing how to use it properly. Learning it inside out, if you will. So the benefits of this is the better and more proficient you are with a loadout, obviously the more effective you're going to be at using it. So a suggestion from me of a great loadout would be something like this. So your primary is going to be a Growl with a monolithic suppressor, the Tempest Archangel barrel, Ranger 4 grip, 60 round mags, and the F-Tac rubber rear grip. For secondaries, you want to rock the RPG. Perks, you want Cold-Blooded, Ghost, and Amped. Cold-Blooded, obviously, it makes it harder for you to see in thermal scopes. Ghost takes you off the minimap for UAVs, and Amped makes this weapon switch a lot faster. For lethals, you want to rock C4 or Semtexes, and for your tacticals, you want to rock a heartbeat sensor. My recommendation would be to start by using C4s because they're great for taking out vehicles as well as personnel. Got a decent throwing range, not as great as a Semtex, but if they're hiding behind a rock, you can take them out. Also, for the tactical, heartbeat sensor is great for picking up anyone that isn't using Ghost. Now, towards mid to late game, everyone starts using Ghost, so it's really great for solo play or early game when no one has Ghost yet. The Growl is probably one of the top tier guns in Warzone at the moment. It's got a super fast fire rate, great damage, and that makes it really good at range. All of these attachments that I just spoke about that I put on the Growl make it like laser beamy at long range. So it's just a very good Growl setup. You can also use something like the M13 or the M4A1, also very good. The M13 has a super fast fire rate, so it's very good up close as well as like mid to long distances. Essentially what you're looking for is something with a decently fast fire rate that has good damage. Now, we'll be doing some more in-depth gun information guides on Warzone, so make sure you subscribe and stick around for those. Lastly, in this chapter of preparation is talking about equipment. Now, equipment comes under TV, your headset, and your peripherals. So talk about TVs. If you're playing on a massive TV like 60-inch TV against someone who's playing on a 27-inch, if you're looking at 60-inch TV, you have to do more work to see more of the screen. Your eyes have to move more. So that means you're going to miss loads of information. Playing on a smaller monitor is always a lot better. Outside of that, headsets are super important, especially in any battle royale game. Sound is key. The more that you can hear footsteps and parachutes and glass breaking, the better. And the more aware you're going to be and you can react to those situations. So having a great headset is epic. I have the Arctis Pro with Game DAC, which is amazing. It's one of the best headsets on the market, but there's loads out there. Let me know down in the comments if you need some help. I do lots of information gathering on this kind of stuff, so I can help out with that if you guys need it. The next topic that I want to talk about is warm-up. And again, this is a point that is massively overlooked and a lot of players don't do it, but it is super critical. You should be doing this every time you start up the game to some extent. Now, some people just jump into a couple of multiplayer matches just to get their hands warmed up, but there is something else that we could be doing. It takes just like 10-15 minutes extra. If you want to do it that quickly, you can spend more time doing it, and I will be going into this in a separate video because the topic is so huge. But just as a roundup, I'm going to be taking you through what you should be looking at doing during a warm-up. The whole point of a warm-up is to take away this time that we usually do when we jump into Warzone, we're super rusty and we just keep dying, or the other players outgun us because our aim just simply isn't on point. One of the biggest topics in aiming and getting your aim right is centering. Now, the whole idea of centering is keeping your crosshair in the center of the screen and focused on places of interest. Doorways, windows. A lot of players just keep their gun kind of like pointed at like a 45-degree angle towards the ground. It's a very beginner habit, and I think it's because it allows you to kind of like look over the top of your gun, but you have to kind of bring that aim up in order to kind of kill someone, and during that time they've already dropped you or they've landed more shots on you than you have. So as you can see here in training, what I'm doing is keeping my crosshair focused on corners and on doorways, and lo and behold, as you can see here with the bots, they land, or they come and walk in straight onto my crosshair. So centering is one of the most important topics that you can be focusing on. And this is probably one of the things, like, when you start to do it, you will notice the difference immediately. I guess the only caveat with all of this is that if you guys are just playing the free version of Warzone and you don't have the full Modern Warfare game, then you can't go and create these custom matches to practice in. If this is your case, then I recommend just jumping into Warzone but trying to apply all of this logic when you do, or failing that, go and play another FPS game, apply this logic, and then jump back into Warzone. The next topic that I want to talk about is tracking. So if you're focusing on your centering and your crosshairs, in a decent position most of the time, the next thing you want to focus on is tracking. Now, tracking is left to right movement and making sure that you're sticking with a target. With aim assist on the controller, this is obviously a bit easier than it is on PC, but if you're playing mouse and keyboard, tracking is one of the the best things you can focus on to improve your aim and get more kills. And another good point for any of this aim training and warm-up scenarios is that you're focusing on specific points. Don't just go in there and just start blasting people. Just focus on your weaknesses. Maybe you're weaker at super close range when someone's right on top of you and you have to do hip fire fights. Just focus on the points that you're weak at and then try and improve on them. Moving on to the third topic, and that is positioning. Positioning and aim are like the two main things with any FPS game. So how do we improve positioning? One, always use cover as much as possible. It might sound obvious, but a lot of people don't utilize cover as much as they should. Don't kind of leave it to go and push for kills. That's one of the biggest ways that I get killed, is when I'm just being too aggressive. I leave cover to kind of clean up a kill, and lo and behold, I get taken out. So always try and use cover as much as possible. Next is always use the high ground. If you're in a position to take the high ground, do it. It's a lot harder for somebody below you to shoot up at you, so you can control that gunfight. And this is essentially because at the top of a hill or building, whatever, you can see much more around you than the people below you can. And in Warzone, there's so much verticality in the forms of buildings, hills, mountains, whatever. So there's ample opportunity for you guys to take the high ground in gunfights. My next tip is all about using the zone. So imagine most of you know about this, but using the zone as kind of like a wall is a really good tactic. Reason being is that essentially there can't be players in there, so you don't have danger coming from that direction. So if the zone's moving in, I recommend keeping it about 15 seconds behind you. That kind of gives you enough time to get in a quick skirmish and still not be caught out by the zone. So using this zone as a wall, as I said, just make sure that in your mind you know that there's very little chance that enemies can be coming from that direction, so you can slowly push into the new circle, just worrying about what's in front of you. Lastly, my tip is all about flanking. Now, flanking, if you didn't know, is all about moving around to the side of an enemy that is unsuspecting and using that to your advantage. Now, you can do this in solos, so And I'm going to touch on this in a second, but basically if they've seen you in one place and you don't re-peek that section and you flank round to the side, they're obviously just looking completely in a different direction, and you can capitalize on that. This is a great tactic if you're playing in anything like duos, trios, quads, whatever, anything more than solos. Have a couple of your teammates just lay down pressure, just keep their attention in one direction while one or two of you flank round to the side and just completely own them. It's a really great tactic. If you guys haven't tried it, I highly recommend you do so. The next amazing topic is movement, a really critical aspect of the game. In short, what you need to be thinking about is just not sitting still like a dummy. The second you sit still, you're an easy target and an easy shot, especially for a sniper. Now this boils down to things like just simply not sitting still in a car, all the way up to things like advanced movements in gunfights. Now, there are times when you have to sit still, like in solos. Obviously, you have to play a little bit more slower and more tactically. But the kind of gist is that, like, if you're in like close quarters, one-to-one gunfights, utilize drop shots and jump shots. Just don't be an easy target. On that note, not being an easy target means you should be unpredictable. The more unpredictable your movement, a lot harder it is for the enemy to hit you. One of my biggest points on this, and I see so many people doing it, is re-peeking. So never re-peek the same position. You should be always making the opponent guess. So let's take a look at an example. This is my own mistake. So I peeked the rock there, and then I self-revived, and then I went back and peeked exactly the same position, which gave him a super easy kill. So no matter what piece of cover you're behind, just try to switch it up, move to a different part of it, change location completely. Just don't give them an easy shot. In hotter situations where you might be in a one-to-one, you're in very close quarters and you're like behind a piece of cover and you know that they're aiming at you, if you duck behind, don't re-peek the same angles. The same principle, but just on a much quicker, closer basis. This falls under the category of misinformation, and misinformation is like one of the top pro player kind of top IQ strats that you need to utilize. The less information an opponent has on you, the harder it is for them to get a kill. This also applies at buy stations and when looting. Do it super quick and get the hell out of there. Don't make it easy for them. Moving on to my final chapter, and that is mentality. Now I'm kind of saving the best for last here because getting your mind right is probably the most important thing. If you're approaching the game in a bad mentality as soon as you start, you're already at a massive disadvantage. So putting your mind in the correct state is beneficial from the get-go. So what do I mean by this? So really, you should be thinking positively, being super playful and sharp. So what I mean by being playful is being like very explorative, like trying stuff out and not worrying too much, and don't freeze up and be loose and have fun. Because when you're like that, better stuff happens, your body's more relaxed, you're more susceptible to making better plays. And when you do get triggered, because it happens to everyone, don't fall into that trap. Take a break, reset, go and do something completely different. Actually remove yourself from wherever you are, whatever you're playing on. Take yourself away from it, go and make a drink, come back, you'll feel a massive difference. The tactic I use is in the pre-game lobby, I kind of just take a second to myself, just kind of reaffirm what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to focus on, what I'm trying to improve at, and then I try to do it in the game. I always try to tell myself, to read the map better, to read the players better, and just kind of just refresh myself on all the points that I've talked to you guys about today. Positioning, cover, centering, all of those things. Just after a while, especially if you've been playing for a long time, these things can start to slip. So it's really good just to kind of refresh yourself in the pre-game lobby and just get your mind right. Lastly, in mentality, I want to talk about knowing your teammates. Now, you might be playing with friends, you might be playing with randoms, but always try to understand the characteristics of the people that you're playing with. It can save you and your teammates in the fights, because knowing how they're going to play can also dictate how you play, and the top players can readjust themselves to play with different players. So for example, if you've got a guy who's a lone wolf who always goes off on his own but he's likely to get downed, then you probably kind of have to stick with this guy and support him. And it's all about that support and team play. Team play is stupidly important. Obviously, if you've got a team of lone wolves running off on their own, nothing great is going to happen. But the more that you unify, the better chances you have. And that's about it for the video, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. If you could leave a like on the video if you did enjoy it, that lets me know that you like this kind of content. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do so. I've been No Fate. Once again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.